Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Swayze Show. And I'm your host, Swayze Sway. Not only is it episode number 1, but we have such an amazing guest today with us. She's a leadership coach. She's a life coach. She's a public speaker. She has her MBA. She has a Master of Science in Mental Health Counseling. And she's the author of Luxurious Experience Academy Presents How to Handle Anxiety. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Stephanie Coradin.
Thank you so much for having me on, and such a great introduction.
Good morning. So, Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. So, how's your New Year's going so far?
So far so good. It's one of those things where I wasn't rushing 2020, despite what everybody else was doing. I wasn't rushing 2020 because I believe in knowing what I have and not knowing what's coming. But so far so good, thank God.
You know, some people may say it's still 2020. Some people are saying it's 2020.2 because you know we're still dealing with a pandemic here.
Yep.
However, I'm sure we're gonna make it through, and you know we're gonna get out of this mess. You know, past year has been terrible. Especially leading up to recently.
Mm-hmm.
One thing for certain though, shout out to Georgia for showing up to vote on Wednesday. Can we give a big shout out to Georgia?
Oh yeah. Yes, shout out Georgia.
Thank you, Georgia, for showing up. That was very big for Georgia to show up on Wednesday, and then the whole aftermath of a mess afterwards at the state capitol.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was a lot of people, and I posted about it, a lot of people were shocked and surprised. I was saddened and disgusted, but not shocked or surprised because we kind of saw it coming. I mean, we didn't know how it was going to look, but there was no other way.
Exactly. I totally agree. And you know what they don't realize is that day has now taken a part of history. That's part of history, American history.
Oh, definitely. Yep.
And it's such a mess. Like you said, I wasn't shocked by it. It was just leading up to it, you know. It just was going to happen. It just was a matter of time, you know.
Exactly.
One thing I will also like to say, you know, as we change the subject a little bit, is how to handle anxiety has helped me this morning.
Really? Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to hear that.
Yes, I mean, you did wonderful on the writing, you know. It's very quick, very easy and direct.
Yes, and that's what I was going for. Something that people could just pick up really quickly and read through really fast and still get some value out of.
Exactly. You know, and I find myself to be more intrigued into those type of readings to where I'm not waiting for what I'm looking for.
Uh-huh.
You know, because sometimes we just got, you know, especially dealing with, you know, anxiety and stuff like that, or just like cooking or whatnot, like a cookbook. Sometimes we just want to get straight to the ingredients, so we could prepare dinner. You know.
Definitely, and you know what? It's always great when you've been through something to write about it, because then you can write it from the perspective of the people that really need it and are looking for that value, you know?
Absolutely.
So I've had anxiety from, you know, the age of 13. I say it all the time. I tell people my story all the time. I've had anxiety since I was 13, even though I didn't know at the time it was anxiety. They thought I had an ulcer. They thought, you know, I was having other gastric issues because it was all in my stomach. That's where I had pain and stuff like that. So I've been there. I know how it feels when you're going through a panic attack, an anxiety attack, or when you're just worrying about things that are not going to even happen for real, you know? So I'm able to approach helping others manage their anxiety from that point of view, from a point of view of somebody who's been there, who knows how it works. And I know for a fact that when you have anxiety, when you're somebody that either just suffers from one quick anxious moment,
Mm-hmm.
or someone who suffers from chronic anxiety, I know that you're one of those people that if you pick up a book for help, you want to see the help right away. If you if you even hire somebody to help you, you want to see that value right away. You don't want to have to wait and build up to it or any of that. You just you want the help. You want it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that goes for a lot of people with a lot of subjects, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and see, when I read that, it hit very close to home because, you know, anxiety is a major subject right now. It's very big now.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, years ago, lots of people didn't know what anxiety was, you know.
Yep.
And I'm coming from a background where I suffered and still to this day suffer from anxiety. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, growing up, it hit around the same time. You know, I was probably like 15 or so. And
Mm-hmm.
my whole life just changed. And I went to different doctors. I was going to, you know, the family doctor and such. And she was diagnosing me with everything but anxiety, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it really, I just didn't know what it was. I just thought I was dying, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I just had wanted my life back, you know, because I was
Yep.
I was an outgoing guy, not really outgoing. I was always laid back, but things didn't really bother me. I didn't mind speaking in front of crowds and all that good stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was like always the person who wanted to go first when it came down to doing class presentations and stuff. And all of a sudden, this new thing just hit me.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what it was, and I couldn't find help. So, like I said, I just thought I was dying. I just prayed and prayed and prayed. And then,
Yep.
as I guess more people start talking about anxiety, to be honest with you, I really didn't find out it was total anxiety till a few years ago. You know, in my adult life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
it was very terrible for me. I couldn't go in grocery stores. I mean, I felt like my body was just breaking down. You know, like I said, it was
Yeah.
diagnosing me with everything but anxiety.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's a lot of times that's how it happens. And especially for us who started having anxiety attacks as teenagers or younger, because the mentality is that you're a kid.
Exactly.
You know, it doesn't even come to mind that you would have that. Or the flip side of that is that they think if you're in a good family, if you have a good family relationship, if you're not being abused, you're not going to have anxiety, which is absolutely false.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a great family. My parents did not abuse me. There was none of that issue. But I also am of Haitian descent.
Okay.
My parents are Haitian, and there are certain societal norms that I just didn't see why they were. I just didn't understand them and didn't want to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
But because I was still a kid, I still had to conform in school and at home and, you know, respect my elders in a way that just wasn't sitting well with me. And it wasn't anything bad. It was just regular things like, you know, girls don't do this. If you're a boy, it's okay, but if you're a girl, it's not. And, you know, a girl shouldn't sit this way, or, you know, it's little things, but they built up to become something that just was killing me on the inside. Like you said, you thought you were dying.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it built up to something that I just didn't want to handle. And at the same time, I didn't want to be a rebel either.
Exactly.
So I was playing this balancing act that became overwhelming to me. And that's where my trauma was. And that's where the anxiety came from. So I think a lot of times doctors at the time back then were not really pointing to that. Like they were like, you're a kid, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it must be something you ate. It must be, you know, something
Exactly.
that you drank.
Mm-hmm.
That's causing your stomach to hurt all the time. Or, you know, if it's your headache, it must be you're going through puberty or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. But they never really went through and truly understood the mental portion of it. And like you, I didn't get officially diagnosed until I was 20. I think I was 20 or 21 when I officially got diagnosed with
Oh, wow.
chronic anxiety. So
Yeah, like for me, my anxiety really prevented me from doing a lot. You know, like
hmm
after I graduated high school, you know, I didn't want to go to college. You know, it was like
hmm
I didn't want to deal with people
hmm
that I didn't know prior. Um
yeah.
I just had wanted, like, it really made my life, it made me want to be simple in life, you know,
hmm
and I felt like I would cheat myself so long, you know, especially
hmm
at work or whatever. It was just like, this can't be life. And I felt like it was just unfair for me to be living like that. And
hmm
then eventually, like I said, I got professional help. And, you know, and I was told by others, you know, oh, you crazy, you know what I'm saying? Don't do that, don't take that, you know, because I tried to, you know, of course, as a teen, not every teen is I don't advise teenagers to do this type of stuff, but you know, I indulge in the early alcohol usage, you know,
hmm
minor drug usage, just try to temporary fix things. But
Figure it out.
yeah, exactly, as a teenager. But I eventually stopped, and I was like, okay, that's not it. And then and
hmm
eventually the anxiety just was beating me every day, beating me. I'm coming home tired, you know. I just feel like
hmm
life is unfair for me. And then I eventually found help, and that was the best thing I could do. And you know, that just been what,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, I think it was like 3 years ago. I think I'm 33 years old now,
hmm
and I finally found help like 3 years ago, professional help, and
Wow.
my life has really did like a 360, and I'm so thankful
Yeah.
for it. You know,
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So the moral of the story there is find help.
exactly, exactly. But
Yeah.
you know, in our background though, in our background, help is like, I think that, like, I spoke with different people about anxiety. Anxiety is like, it's a shame subject for a lot of people, you
hmm
know? And like, why do you have to be shamed? People, I think people look at anxiety as a sign of weakness.
In our background as Black people, we grow up thinking that if you have a mental health issue, then you must be either crazy
Mm-hmm.
or a sociopath, which that's another real issue. It's a mental health issue, and so we don't even try to seek counseling
Mm-hmm.
in the fear that we're going to get judged. People are going to think, we can't do our jobs or we
Mm-hmm.
can't function or we won't be able to find a relationship and so on and so forth. So now I make it my purpose in life to tell people, you know, no matter what, at least one time you should just try it. You
Exactly.
should try counseling. You should try therapy. You should find a coach to help you see your blind spots. You should try it at least once and then go from there. Make your own mind. Don't go by what, society has dictated for years and years and years,
Mm-hmm.
because more than likely we're getting that from our colonizers.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? Our colonizers always seek help.
That's absolutely true.
So we should start trying to break that generational curse where we think seeking help is weakness.
Exactly. Because, you know, a lot of brothers and sisters need help. You know what I mean? That is being, I mean, look at America, you know, and that was one of the things I was going to speak about is like, I have a therapist who I cannot, I mean, though I could have found a different therapist, but she cannot understand my pain
Mm-hmm.
because she never walked in my shoes as a Black man in America. And
Yep.
a conversation I had with someone else is that, you know, my anxiety came from school and education, the education system and stuff that was going on in my life too. Well, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like not saying the school system has a lot to do with the anxiety, but I think a lot of practical judgments starts from teachers
Of
and
course.
staffing. You know, I feel like they give up on a
Mm-hmm.
lot of Black students, and then they make them feel like they not someone. You know how I feel to be
Yep.
left out. You know, it's not a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. Of course. I totally agree. And then there's the other side of that, to where till this day, the education system doesn't realize that not every student learns the same.
Exactly.
And so once you're not captivating what's being taught, you're shamed. You're made to look like you're dumb and stupid,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not that at all. You just have a different learning. I guess I should call it a different way of learning,
Mm-hmm.
and that will hinder you if somebody doesn't notice that and tries to help you. And in the public school system, more specifically, that happens all the time. And I have the example of my daughter. I early on realized that she was struggling with math, and this was like in the first grade. And nobody told me she was struggling with math at school. I realized it because I made it a point to sit with her in the afternoons to do her homework. And so finally, like 6 months into the first grade, I sent an email to her teacher and said, "Hey, I noticed that my daughter is struggling with math. Is there a tutor that you can refer me to?" That's when she was like, "Oh, yes, that would be good for her because she is struggling for math." I'm like, yo, she's been there for 6 months and you never thought to say something to me. She's only in the first grade. You know, she's only 6 years old, so you should communicate this with me before I even reached out to you. But long story short, I got her a tutor, and what I noticed with my daughter is that she does way better when she is learning one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
She does way better when the person is fully focused on her, so she can be learning for like 2 hours, and she'll catch more than when she's in class for 6 hours. So I had to make that adjustment for her because that's just her learning style.
Exactly.
So had I not realized it, though, they would have kept, I'm in the state of Florida, and they have this no kid left behind thing where, they just keep pushing these kids up grades, even though they're not really learning.
Okay.
So had I not noticed it on my own, they would have just kept promoting her, and she would have been, out of luck by the time she gets to, middle school, and she really needs to know the basic math to do these algebra, problems and stuff. So thank God I caught it early, but this is something that happens to kids everywhere. And that would have caused, by the time she got to middle school, had I not caught it, back then, she would have been like, what, 13, 12, 13 when you go to middle school. And that would be, a hindrance for her. Absolutely. And that could have caused anxiety and depression,
Exactly.
So that's where these things start. They start at the base, and if we don't catch them early or don't know what we don't know, because that's the other thing. A lot of people just don't know what they don't know. There are parents out there working 2-3 jobs, and we can't blame them for not catching something, as small as struggling. She was still passing in math, but I noticed she was struggling, but that's only because I was privileged enough to be able to be home in the afternoons with her. Absolutely. Had I not been home, I wouldn't have noticed it. I would have just thought she's not putting in all the effort she can, so she's getting a C instead of an A in math. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So
I totally could relate. With the virtual school thing now. My kids, they started out doing the I think in class learning or whatnot. They was going to school for like 2 days, but that only lasts like 2 weeks. And then we switched them over to the virtual learning, totally virtual. And then the teacher was talking about my son or whatnot. He's like in second grade or so, and making it like his fault. But what I told her is that you have to figure out how to adjust your teaching style, your teaching ability, because obviously what used to work doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes you gotta let them know, because she tried to put everything on my son. I'm like, no, it's not gonna be on my son. This is your job. You have to learn how to reevaluate yourself and how you give instructions, for this given time. And then from there, you know, she actually took that in consideration, you know, because you're not going to put down my son and you're not going to give up on him because I'm not going to let you do that, you know. Just not, you know, but definitely as parents, we have to pay attention to these kids because, you know, my mom, I grew up in a single family home or whatnot. My mom, she kind of she didn't get involved with the school stuff, you know. She was a nice lady, but she didn't get involved. My mom, I think she also suffered from depression and anxiety, quiet lady. And so she didn't get involved, you know what I mean? So, you know, with the people oppressing you at the schoolhouse for 8 hours, you know, that's pretty tough for a kid. And then not only that, like you said, then as the child matures into a young adult, you know, out here in the real world, it's even tougher.
Yep.
You know, and it kind of carries on. You know, it carries on into the workforce. It carries on in the streets. You know.
Yeah.
It's very tough. It's very tough for kids, but it's very important for us to get involved and speak to our children and figure out, you know, what are you feeling? I'm very thankful for the anxiety in a way because I can understand it and I can teach it, you know, from a personal perspective. And I'm not ashamed to speak to people about anxiety. You know, they're like, what, you went through anxiety? Yeah. You know, and you know, of other people having problems. I'm like, okay, she probably suffered from anxiety. Or he probably suffered from anxiety. And then, you know, that type of stuff, you know, you can recognize it or whatnot, you know? So yeah, just, you know, we just gotta, you know, protect our children, you know, protect our children, their future and protect their mental health, you know, for certainly.
Exactly. I'm a big proponent for that.
You know, even my kids, you know, I try to make sure, you know, hey, what's wrong? Hey, what's wrong? You know, I want to know because I don't want it to be balled up inside.
Yep, definitely. Communication is key.
It definitely the key. Nevertheless, it's a new year. And with the new year comes a new year resolution. So how you feel about New Year resolutions?
So I'm a little torn about New Year resolutions. So on one hand, I strongly believe that with the new year, it's easy to have the mentality of a clean slate.
Okay.
And so we should run with that. You should run with that mentality of a clean slate and that, you know, you have this new year to do everything that, you know, you would like to do, everything that you plan on doing. And on the other hand, I also know that with the new year, it's just another day. Like, you know, December 31st was on Thursday, and then on Friday, it was January 1st. Same week, you know, just another day. So when I say I'm torn, I mean, when I teach people to, yes, run with the mentality that you have a clean slate, but at the same time, don't just make a resolution because you think that's what people do or that's what's supposed to be done. If you're going to make a resolution, you have to sit with it. And mind you, it does not have to be at the new year. It could be any time in the year. But since traditionally we do resolutions at the beginning of the year, if you're going to do have a resolution for the beginning of the year, make sure you sit with it and understand the why behind your resolution. So, for example, one of the biggest resolutions that we hear at the new year is dieting. I'm going to start dieting on January 1st, or I'm going to start dieting on the first Monday of January because I want to get my sexy back or whatever the reason is, right? Well, by February 1st, most of those diets have already failed.
Absolutely.
Most people have already stopped doing whatever it is that they started doing, whether that's going to the gym, whether that's, you know, eating clean, whatever it is, they've already stopped. And why have they stopped? Because that New Year resolution was very superficial. It's not the fact that it was, I want to lose weight, that was superficial. That's not superficial at all. It's the reason or lack thereof that makes it superficial. So I want to lose weight because in my family, there's a long line of diabetics, and I'm still young.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to prevent myself from getting diabetes. So I'm going to start now, lose weight, eat better, right? And create a better lifestyle for myself so that I don't get diabetes. As opposed to, I want to lose 20 pounds because I want to be able to wear a bikini this summer. Do you see the difference there?
Yeah, it's a big difference. Definitely a big difference.
See how you're going to be more motivated to keep on doing that first resolution, because this is a lifelong journey that you're getting on, and there's a reason behind it. You're passionate about it. You're going to be probably the first person in your family to not have diabetes.
Exactly.
Diabetes is a big deal in the Black community.
Exactly.
Our parents, most of our parents end up being diabetic and end up suffering from it, So we're going to try not to continue, again, that generational curse, like I said before. We're going to lead by example and teach our kids that they need to eat better, eat cleaner, exercise every day, move your body no matter how you're moving your body, so that not only do we not get diabetes, but we're teaching our kids that this is a better life for them, so that we can cut out that whole diabetic issue that's been going on forever in our community, as opposed to, I just want to get sexy so I can wear a bikini this summer.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big difference in that. One thing I must admit, I'm a big procrastinator. It may have something to do with anxiety, and stuff like that.
And that's what I was going to say. That is directly attached to your anxiety, directly attached to being a worrier.
Yeah, exactly. My mom was a worrier. She was a big worrier. My mom used to worry all the time. Like, I never understood it. Do you think worrying can be taught?
Yes. And when I say can be taught, I don't mean purposely, but subconsciously it is taught. Because a lot of things that we do, if you look back, you did exactly what your mom was doing, especially if you're doing it on default. Especially if you're going on default. You're going to do exactly what you were taught, what you learned growing up. And when I say learn, maybe I should say what you saw. Right? In order for you to do something different, that's what you have to do on purpose. You have to clearly be aware that this was not right, or I didn't like the way this was done, so I'm going to change it. Right? And so if all you saw was your mom worrying all the time, by default, that's what's going to happen to you. You're going to be a worrier.
Exactly.
By default. But you can override it.
Definitely.
It's not easy. It's very simple, not easy, but you can override it. And when we have something by default, overriding is a lifelong journey. It's not something that, I'm going to learn. I taught myself how to not worry anymore, and now I can stop paying attention to whether or not I worry.
Exactly.
That's not how that works. Because once you let go, you go back to default.
Okay. I got you. So it's just like fears and stuff. A lot of things I haven't done in my life is based upon things that my mom told me not to do, or she's afraid of, like heights. Like, I think, and that's why I try to tell my kids, like, I'm not going, my kids be like, Dad, what are you afraid of? I'm not going to tell you.
Yep.
I'm not going to tell you because I'm not going to teach that on you. I'm not going to put that on you by default, like you saying. I'm just not.
And another way to approach that is you can tell them, but also explain it. Like, I'm afraid of heights, but that's my fear. It doesn't have to be yours.
Exactly.
And I've learned that telling my kids that has helped a whole lot. I want to be transparent with them. I don't want to, because you know what? They may be asking you what you're afraid of, but they probably already know. So you not telling them is not really making a difference, because they already know.
Okay.
So it's better to address it and be like, yes, I'm afraid of spiders, but you don't have to be. Just don't
Exactly.
bring it next to me.
Yeah, exactly. Indeed.
You know what I'm saying? Just don't bring it next to me. You know, my kids know my fear, but I tell them all the time, that's my fear. Go out and find your own.
Exactly.
You know, don't imitate mine. Go out and find your own.
Exactly.
But it's so funny that you're saying that because I have the simplest example.
Oh.
My mom is allergic to tomato paste.
Oh, wow.
Not some ketchup, but the actual tomato paste.
Mm-hmm.
She's allergic to it. And growing up, she never cooked. She never used it because she's allergic. You know, if she touches it, it swells up her hand, so she doesn't buy it, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But guess what? I've never tasted tomato paste in my life,
Oh, wow.
ever.
That's amazing.
Even though I know logically that just because she was allergic, that doesn't make me allergic.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that's just wired in my brain. My mom never used it, so I'm not going to use it. And that's something that if it was something that would, if it was something I needed in my life or that would change something for me, maybe I would overcome that. But it's tomato paste. I really don't care. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly,
so I
yeah.
just leave it alone. So there's that too, that balance where if it's not something that's going to harm me or change anything in my life,
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine with my default. You know, I'm fine with being allergic to tomato paste, even though I don't know what reaction it would have on.
Exactly. But like you said, you don't need it. So I mean, you don't need it.
Yeah.
You've been doing fine without it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. I think. Let's see. I was trying to think of this analogy that I heard years ago about I'm very bad at telling stories, but I think there was a friend of mine. He told me he was like, for every I think holiday, the mom and the daughter's in the kitchen, and the mom will always cut the like half of the ham. She'll cut half of the ham and put it in the pot,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
then as the daughter grew up, had her own family and stuff, she started doing the same thing. And one day her mom was in the kitchen. She was like, "Well, why you cut half of the ham off?" And she was like, and
Yes.
she
I
was,
think I've heard that story
yeah.
too.
And she was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing it because you did it. And she was like, well baby, I did it because the pot was too small. You know?
Yeah.
And so exactly,
Yeah.
it's one of those things, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Always something.
Yeah, because, sometimes we just don't know why people do things, but we just, like you said, by default, we see different things,
Yep.
When they say, be mindful what you do in front of your kids or whatnot, because, because as parents, we are supposed to be our kids' biggest influence.
Exactly. Exactly. Lead by example. I tell my husband all the time, lead by example, babe.
Exactly.
All the time.
Exactly.
I remind him.
Exactly. My wife, she always be like, you such a dad, you such a dad. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm just trying to lead by example. I can't be teaching on one thing and do something different because I know they watching. I know they watching. A lot of my habits, I see them, they do a lot of things that I do already, and it's all good stuff, exactly how I spend my pastime or whatnot. I see them and indulging in the same pastime habits I have. It's all good stuff, but I can see they do it because they see their dad do it. In the past, I used to listen to a lot of motivational speakers. Especially when I was dealing with hard times, and probably one of the first ones, probably one of the first speakers that motivated me when I was younger with Joel Osteen. And then, I used to think he was awesome. I guess he's still an awesome guy. And then after I discovered Joel Osteen, I discovered this guy named Les Brown, who was absolutely awesome. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Les Brown. And
I am.
One thing Les Brown will always say is write it down. He used to always say write it down. And I want to know, how big is it for people to write down their goals and its effectiveness?
It is huge to write down your goals, to write down your thoughts. It's huge. So 2 parts there, your goals. When you write them down, they become real.
Mm-hmm.
When they're in your mind swirling, they're just thoughts. You make them real when you put them on paper. That's just how the brain works. That's just how the brain is wired. That's why a lot of times people will say vision boards are effective.
Mm-hmm.
There's no magic there. You're not manifesting anything.
Exactly.
When you write it down, when you see it in front of you, you just tend to be reminded. The brain is triggered to go after it, as opposed to when it's in your mind swirling. When it's in your mind swirling, the brain is like, okay, yes, this is a pretty thought, but we haven't decided to do anything on it. But when you write it down and you make that decision that this is what I'm going to do, it's clear to your brain that we need to take steps to do this. That's just how the brain is wired.
Exactly.
And like I said, it was twofold, because also when you write down your thoughts, like when you brain dump, you are able to see all the negative things that your brain, that's swirling in your brain as well.
Exactly.
And so that helps on the flip side of writing your goals. They kind of walk hand in hand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we covered this earlier. So how should people respond to goals that they did not achieve?
When you haven't achieved a goal, you should just be fascinated, right? Ask yourself why. What happened? What stood in your way? What excuses were you making, right? And that's another reason why brain dumping is good, because you'll be able to see all of those things. You'll be able to see. And when I say what I call brain dumping is just you taking paper and pen and just writing every thought that comes to mind about whatever subject that you're thinking about. Just write it. Don't judge it. Don't look at it. Don't try to edit your thoughts. Just write it, no matter how sad, how embarrassing, how ugly, everything. Just put it on paper. You don't need to show anybody. You can burn it afterwards. You can, tear it up and throw it away. Whatever you want to do with it. But just take it out of your head and put it on a piece of paper, just so you can be fascinated. Don't judge it. And I'm using the word fascination on purpose, because don't beat yourself up. Don't judge it. Don't think you're a bad person for thinking X, Y, Z. Just be fascinated by that thought that you had. And you can evaluate the thought. You can investigate the thought. You can, ask yourself why you're thinking this way.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest way to do that is to brain dump. And the same thing that you should do with your goals, because most of the time when you don't achieve a goal, it's either because you're scared, you're thinking that you're not good enough or you can't do it, you're afraid to get out of your comfort zone, you're afraid to step out, so that ties with the fear. You're sometimes afraid of the success that might come with that goal. You don't know if you're going to be able to handle it or keep it up. A lot of people think if they do something and it works, how are they going to keep it up, or how are they going to top it?
Exactly.
But I'm here to tell you, as a fellow worrier, as a fellow anxious person, don't worry about what's going to happen after.
Exactly.
Just worry about what you're doing now.
Good.
So evaluate why you didn't hit that goal, and then just start over. I mean, that's the beauty of life. So long as you have breath in your body, you can just keep starting over.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I think a lot of people is so quick to give up. Even when they don't achieve it, they beat themselves down. But like I said, it's okay to start over. It's okay to start over. And then back to, writing down goals. Like all my goals that I wrote down, I pretty much achieved them. And so whenever I heard Les Brown saying that, I was just more effective on different things, on different levels. I mean, not everything I will achieve, but most of them I would. And just seeing that, being able to just cross it out, like your daily agenda, just being able to cross those tasks out. It just seemed to be more effective.
Of course.
Like you said, just putting things in your mind is not the same. It don't work the same, for some reason. It just don't. Just being able to actually just be hands on with what you wrote down is very effective.
Yeah, it's like you're challenging yourself.
Exactly, it's definitely a challenge.
It's a challenge.
A term I learned when I was in college at the University of Phoenix is grit. Not sure if you're familiar with grit. When I first heard it, I just knew it meant griminess, intense, and like discipline. Like, what advice could you give people to develop better discipline, or and what's your thoughts on discipline?
Sure. So, discipline, first of all, is in the eye of the beholder, right?
I like that.
What I might think is discipline, you may not think is discipline, right?
Yes.
Some people are extremely workaholic, right? So you chilling at the beach because you took a day off might look like you're not disciplined to that person, right? But for regular discipline, I guess we can call it regular discipline. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. When you say you're going to be somewhere, you are. I say that the first thing you need to do is look inside yourself. Always, always, always. So no matter what it is that we say we're going to do and we don't do it, there's a mindset issue attached to it. There's a thought attached to it. There's a reason we're not showing up, right? And that reason might be something that we created in our minds. It might, and most of the time when we create something in our minds, it's because there's a set of beliefs that was ingrained in us. There's that default.
Absolutely.
So always I say, and people look at me weird because it's kind of like my answer to everything, look inside your mind. But really and truly, find out why. And this is for somebody who actually wants to be disciplined, because sometimes the person just doesn't want to face whatever it is. They don't want to. They're not ready. And for that person, there's nothing you can do to make them ready, right? So for the person who is ready, who really does want to do it, and they feel like they're still not able to achieve certain levels of discipline, I'd say look for it. Look for the reason. What is the feeling that comes up for you when you're supposed to be doing this and you're procrastinating, right?
Exactly.
Why are you not, recording this podcast and instead you're watching TV?
Exactly.
Why?
Exactly.
There's a reason. It doesn't always show up like plain and simple, but it's there. And if you really truly look, you'll find it.
Exactly.
And once you find that reason, work on it. It's a lot of work. It's daily work, and it's hard work, but it's simple work. Most of the time for these types of things, that's why you need help. Because when your mind is in default, when you're in a certain place, you can try to help yourself, and you'll get to a certain level. But there's a point you reach where you do need that push. Exactly. You need that push. And so that's where you have to reach out and find help for yourself.
I think also people are afraid of the unknown, not knowing, just not being sure of what's going to happen. And I think that really caused a lot of procrastination too as well, and cause people to not be disciplined because they're just afraid of the results. Some people think about what people think. Yeah. They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of, showing up because they don't know how it's going to end. They don't know if they're going to make it or fail. And if they do fail, how are people going to look at them? What's society going to say? And then also, if I say certain things, am I going to be banned? Am I going to not be looked at the same? So it's a mind game, and that's why you need help. Exactly. It's definitely a mind game. Okay, it's time for the Sway news break. Let's talk about what's happening in the world right now. It's saying the Democrats could bring an article of impeachment to the House floor as soon as next week, according to the Assistant House Speaker. That's what the House Speaker has told CNN. So would the impeachment really make a difference after all this damage that the president has caused?
In my opinion, at this point, no. And especially if it's as early as next week when there's only 12 days left
Exactly.
for him to leave. So I think maybe it's symbolic. Maybe it's them showing the world, not just us, but the world, that it may have been late, but we did something about it anyways. But to me, it doesn't really make a physical difference in anything.
Yeah, exactly. Because they allowed this guy to cause so much damage, and he just straight up destroyed his country for 4 years. He just tried to destroy it, and now we always, not all of us, but especially our culture, we was feeling the after effect, and we knew the warning before it started. And and then it wasn't until this past year when COVID hit that more cultures had felt the oppression and being told what to do, and having to follow by the rules and saying, I'm not going to follow those rules. But we've been following the rules of America since forever. It was, they really put it on us. You know what I mean? So it's just absolutely a mess. But I think at this moment we're gonna wrap it up for today. We're gonna wrap it up for today. I really do appreciate you for stopping by and chat with me today. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you all for listening. Thank you again, Miss Stephanie. It was such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Likewise.
Once again, it's your main man, Swayze Sway. It's a Swayze Sway show. Thank you.